we would love to learn like how this journey started. So it's a long career, and you have beautifully shaped it to the very very senior leadership positions, which many of our learners actually are aspiring to be. And their question is, how it has started, how you groomed yourself, what all obstacles you faced when you tried to pivot in the leadership position. So please help us learn, how had been your journey in this.
Of course, like any college graduate, my first goal was to get a job. Okay, so that was the main focus, and the job had to be obviously related to my coursework experience, because when I was doing my master's here, I didn't have much of experience. I didn't have any work experience. There was this concept of client server computing, which had just come in into the marketplace, and I had done some coursework related to client server tools. I had worked on Power Builder. I was very fascinated by the tool because that was my first full-fledged experience with building UI, user interfaces in computers. So I thought, okay, that's going to be my go-to thing. The next few years in my career, I was very focused on UI. I really started learning more about the tool, when I was working. I spent the next 3-4 years, I would say 3 to 5 years in that whole UI space. But then in those type of tools, you are constantly dealing with data, right? Because you're pulling data from databases. So we had to be close to the database also, because that was the only thing. You are pretty much working with structured data on those times. There was no unstructured data, right? Um, so when I had hit a point around 5 years after that, uh, you know, it just a random thought came into me. Hey, is there something else I can do? Because it tended to get a little repetitive. So I was like, can we do something else? I learned a lot about stored procedures, started doing more with it, started working on query execution. So obviously, one thing led to the other. Probably the next 4 or 5 years, I traveled as a DBA database developer. It went on. Then something unfortunate happened. The dot-com bust happened in 2000. I had a layoff. We had a layoff. I lost my job. I joined another company and I continued my journey as a database developer. When I hit another thing in the space called data transformation services, which was called DTS at that time. And then I started using it. The one thing which grabbed my attention was it was very visual. So visually, you could lay out your flow. This is how data will go. This is where the stored procedure will execute. All those things you can do. And I started working in it. Then I started getting a good understanding of it, and I really started liking it. Then maybe I thought that's something I need to do more. We had another layoff in that organization. Again, I got impacted. So I had two layoffs within a span of 1 year. So those were my big setbacks at that time. But since I was young, I just kept, okay, let's try the next one. Right? There was some momentum going on. I was able to navigate that. Then I landed in Bank of America. But I would say that's when all the whole data transformation happened, where I started getting more into integration services, started getting more into analytics, started doing cube building, reporting. So the whole horizon just broadened. Um, One thing I will say is get your hands dirty. Whatever comes your way in your job. You're working on spreadsheets, doing pivots, or you're doing heavy stored procedure coding, or you're doing integration services, cube building. Uh, Come what, just experience it. I think it'll all really matter when you grow in your career. You're taking more leadership positions. You'll develop a lot more empathy for what goes on in the trenches. I think you should never lose sight of that. Like you can be in a leadership position, but if some server goes down, you should know what really happens there, at least at a high level. So that's what I would summarize at this point.